All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Robert Tao with Huawei Technologies. I've worked with some of the guys like Ali, Brian, Jonathan, previously in the core, for a short duration in the core project. But right now, I'm involved in a open community. It's called Gloon. Right. All right. Yeah, just bear with me if you already hate it. But this community basically consists of it's initiated by a AT&T gentleman, Bian Hu, and it consists of a few vendors. Huawei is one, and then the rest like Cisco, Juniper, Extender. What it does is that so these guys feel that some of the current NAV might be too slow in terms of innovating or integrating with the existing network, providing the same level of functionalities into the NAV. So they come up with a framework, in general terms called Gloon. But this framework will provide a model-driven based architecture, be able to hook up with SDN controllers so that the application client is able to fully use what the SDN network does. Like because currently SDN already can provide now MPLS, VPN, etc., etc. Especially those commercial SDN controllers are provided by these guys. It provides a model-driven way so that when a SDN vendor wants to provide a service, it can use the model-driven framework to create, create the API so that client can just call the controller for those new services. And another good thing about this is that it allows a different vendor SDN controller to be able to work on the same framework. So the client does not need to know, in general, does not need to say, oh, I cannot work with this controller. I can only work with the other controllers. So this is the idea. Most important is that the Gloon is able to provide the NAV with existing network functionalities, whatever is running there seamlessly. The way it does is, I use OpenStack as an example because Nova and Neutron, OpenStack has been widely used. What it does is, the Gloon provides the support services. So let's say a Nova VM wants a port and a network, you just make a request to Gloon, and then whatever controller that implements that port with the functionalities the port provides, such as MPLS, VPN, etc., just does it. The architecture is like this. So the Neutron has a currently, this is in the middle of a negotiation with OpenStack, but Neutron is to provide this Gloon functionality using a ML2 plugin for Gloon, and that call, if it is for Gloon controllers, will be directed to the Gloon pieces, and the Gloon will be able to find the corresponding SDN controller and forward that request to that controller. I love there's some text about descriptions of each pieces, but in generally it is like that. What I the purpose I want to achieve in this meeting is first, I want to understand, your guys' opinion whether or not we, from an owner's point of view, if it's valuable to add a layer here. It's a shim layer on top of ONOS to work with clone framework to support this capability. That's number one. Number two, whether or not if it works, whether or not we can, doing some kind of a joint effort to some extent. Well, one benefit I see is that we can declare that ONOS is able to support a framework that seems to be valuable, seems to be feasible as well. And I want to also hear other comments from you guys. So this is the background. I could go a little bit more about the flow if that helps, how it works using VPN as an example. Let's say a client, a tenant wants to create a VPN and then create some VMs attached to the VPN network in the tenant network. So in the OpenStack side, you can just go ahead and create a tenant and create a network. But the network needs to direct to the right controller, SDN controller, so that the SDN controller creates it. And then from now on, when Nova create a VM, say, oh, I want to connect this VM to the network, just create it. So it does a port request as usual to the Neutron, and the Neutron is a Neutron new plugin for clone is able to see that, oh, this is a port that is provided by a clone controller. So it intercept that call and forward it to the clone server. And the clone server basically maintains a matching of the port, a variety of ports, and the providers of the port. So if you look at the port, say, well, this is provided by, say, SDN controller A, and then it's gonna find the implementation API. Here we call it a Proton, and send it to the Proton. By the way, the Proton will be generated by a model file, a YAML file. Not much implementation there, but it's just, it can be generated from the model. And the Proton will take that call and notify the SDN through the etcd about that request. So that's how the port request would be able to reach to the SDN controller that controls network. So that's the high-level flow. So the kind of work that involved will be the shim layer here on top of an SDN controller. Basically, what it does is to subscribe and publish the network and the port events so that the clients they get to see those events, and also is able to receive the requests from the clients. And of course, to provide a specific service support from the shim layer. That's all it takes to build the SDN to allow the SDN to work with the clone. I guess that's the overview of what this is. I can sit and take some questions from you guys.
So I think the first thing is nothing's going to prevent you from building a shim layer as an ONOS application that could run on platform.
That's right.
Or off platform for that matter, if you want to use the existing external APIs. And depending upon the types of services that you want and whether those services are already available from other ONOS applications, it may be fairly trivial. But definitely the approach, if you are going to go down this route, would be to do something as an app.
Right. Like for example, if we want to build a VPN as an app, right now we don't have a VPN available, right? Is
There
available, the app available?
We do have a VPN. There's a VPN app. Three.
Oh, VPN. Sorry.
VPN.
Oh, VPN. No. Sorry, I was saying VPN.
Right. Well, once it gets down to the SDN, whether or not you have that functionality.
There may be a VPN app as well.
Right.
One of them.
Forgive me, I broke my teeth and
Sorry.
haven't got it fixed. So.
It happens.
Oh, I built the swimming pool and that just got too deep.
Oh no.
Because you didn't break your neck.
Yeah, really.
Right.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was better than that.
You have some comments down over there. You had some initial reaction.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Gluon is fine. It's fine. I don't see a problem with it. Sure, why not? I mean, I don't have a problem with that in particular. How accepted is Gluon now in OpenStack?
It is in the process of discussion with the OpenStack community.
Okay.
There are a couple of strategies, like a plan B. Essentially, if the plan A is to go to the Nova straight, and then plan B say, well, I don't want to mess up with Nova, and we might just just leverage your neutrons there, and without changing neutrons code, by adding this wrapper, just extend the class in the neutron. So that was the strategy. But I think it's a ongoing discussion will be happening.
It's been in discussion for a while now.
Yes, it has been for a while. I joined this activity just last month or so.
Mm-hmm.
The October, there's the OpenStack Summit, and OpenStack is able to allocate a discussion session for us.
Okay.
To talk through this. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. And what is your interest in having something like Gluon? Why do you? Well, let me ask that differently. Why do you need Gluon?
Well, the difference is that Gluon provides. Number one is that it provides something that neutron cannot do right away.
Okay.
And number two, it gives a more nimble way for someone to develop new service. Let's say you want to develop let's say load balancer, right? What you do is of course your SDN network has to support it. The controller support it, and then you don't need to go to OpenStack and you can say, well, change your code and do whatever to support this feature. Instead, just say, you provide a proton by generating it from your model and then plugging it into it. And that's it.
Cool. So, you have some comments? Any other questions?
This is Patrick. Can I add something, Brian? Yeah. So the gluon is just back to the Alice questions. This mechanism basically provides the connections, interconnection between the different controllers, right? So take a look at this ones. There are shared architectures. So the service is built on top of the controllers within the OpenStacks. So the controller can, through this mechanism, to interconnect each other. It's a things. Number two is they bypass the neutrons. The neutron implementations take a long time to add the new features. This way, basically, they use the model-driven architecture to develop the protons. There is called the protons, right? The top one is the neutron. The lower one is the proton. Each proton you can deploy one service. So they are using the model-driven. So for these architectures, in the beginning, someone asked about if we can use some things built in the controllers. Yes, it pretty much depends on how we implement the models. In the layer 3 VPN, we have the network model, and we also have the device model. So the Robert. Now, currently, I think the device model is being handled by the SDN controllers, and the network model is being handled by the protons. So we still see a lot of work in SDN controllers, not just at the shim layer. Am I right?
Support. Since I haven't gotten into the VPN implementation design yet, whether or not how that different model is implemented in which layer, I think we could hold it for another discussion. But it seems to me like the shim, like this shim, needs to be able to support both device layer requests, for example, the network and the ports, which is associated with it to connect to a device, right, like an OBS, for example. But the good thing is that the shim does not actually handle the logic. So if going back to your question, how big the shim is more like a translator back and forth, and then the actual implementation of the layer 3 will be internal to the SDN or in SDN app. Whether or not that's in the using a network model or more device model, I think it probably is the both. Because you want to provide both network and the device support to the client. That's what I feel at this point.
Okay. So
I guess what I'm hearing is that perhaps the role of the shim would be to communicate with etcd, publish and subscribe to model events, publish events from the network to etcd, receive new models from etcd, and then potentially work alongside either other core services like the topology service to receive information about topology, and potentially other applications like a P2P API or an L3 VPN API application, and it would hand off the service models to those applications as they're being pushed in. So I think it's a good question, because it does seem like there is additional functionality that would need to be built, ideally as an application or additional applications in the controller to make this work. But you could have like a Proton model and then an application that implements that model. So you deploy a Proton model that would sort of sit next to your etcd interface app or something.
Right. Well, I have a question whether or not the shim can be like a generic knob to make a new service development much easier. Like subscribe and publishing functionality should be within that general code. The rest, like service-specific function, will be handled differently by apps. If that's possible, that would be a nice way to do it.
Yeah. So your app doesn't get.
Right.
To the Brian, the Brian and the teams, I think the phase one, we proposed this one in the phase one. We only support the layer 3 VPN. Now you see we have a separate layer 3 VPN project. You could ask the some things, right? So basically both are running in a different environment. This one is a cloud, OpenStack, right? So the most of the implementations is in the OpenStack, and tightly with the OpenStack. So the one is we are working on. It's a separate one, layer 3 VPN. It's not related to the. We don't tie to the OpenStack. So this is the separate. In this one, Glue-on project, we'll build the framework and shim layers, only implement the layer 3 VPN. So potentially, in the testing case, we will interwork with the others. So currently, like Robert said, he is engaged in the Glue-on communities. So the Cisco's, Ericsson, and all these guys, Junipers, all these guys bring in their commercial controllers in this environment. So we really want to build these ones to integrate the ONOS into this environment and get chance to talk to other controller. So here is the most of the motivations to support this. Meantime, we are still working on another layer 3 VPN. So basically, both has a different requirement to the SD controllers, to the ONOS. Yep, it's my comments.
It looks like Bob has some questions he's put in the chat. One's a comment on the overall architecture, and it seems like, Bob, do you want to speak to this?
No, not really.
All right. Well, I guess the comment. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, you know, I hate this whole architecture, and you know, there's all this OpenStack garbage in it, and you know, I can't imagine any sane person would design a system like this. But I agree with Brian that there's nothing preventing you from, like, you know, writing an ONOS app that does what you want. So my advice is just go do it if this is something you actually want.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no nothing that would, from a technical perspective, prevent you
from
building this. Yeah.
Right. A question I want to raise is if we do it, any help in case we need that we can get from the lab.
Yeah, so I think
either technical consultants or actual main force.
Yeah, so from a consultancy or technical help area, the two main resources are going to be the Slack channel and the ON.Lab.
Right.
And so it's not just ON.Lab folks, but larger members. The community at large participates in discussion and helps people through all phases of application development, deployment, testing, etc.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be something there. In terms of manpower, the lab ON.Lab's resources are primarily focused on initiatives that are normally key priorities for the project or related to use cases. And so to talk about that, we'd probably have to put together a more explicit project proposal with deliverables, what features that this would enable on the platform, and/or proofs of concept.
Right.
Before we talked about like spending the development resources here on helping to develop the code.
Right. Well, I associate with this presentation is a POC that I'm proposing, well, within Huawei as well, to actually do a POC besides other vendors, like Cisco and Juniper. They already put stuff into the OpenAV lab. There's a Fires lab, and everybody put the stuff in that lab. And I'm thinking like putting ONOS into the lab as well, so the global environment to run together, and maybe interoperate with those controllers as well to build the VPN POC service. The actual development, I think, besides the shame in that case, would also need like VPN coding part. I haven't got it, how to implement that part, but we can discuss. I will discuss with Patrick.
I mean, it sounds like Patrick has a team, or there's a team at Huawei that may already be building the L3 VPN app for a different use case.
Right.
And so if that could be reused,
into this purpose.
The shim layer is simplified and can rely on that code.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I'd also kind of like to say that this L3 VPN, so is like one of the simplest possible applications you can write, and so it's not rocket science.
Right. Well, there's also a lot of components. One thing for you guys, I guess for the VPN route learning, I know that we have a mechanism to do the VPN route learning through BGP virtual router, right? Is that virtual router capable of doing the VPN route propagation?
VPN route propagation isn't a really sane idea, and you should probably think of it differently.
Okay.
In a VPN application, or in any kind of SDN application, you just pick the routes however you like and program them in. And ONOS has a number of APIs for doing that.
I think, well, what you're referring to is when you have your 3 or 4 VPN sites,
right,
and then have certain prefixes that are available at those sites.
Right.
You want to advertise those prefixes to other sites via BGP or some other routing protocol.
Right.
So
yeah, that doesn't sound like VPN to me. That sounds like BGP.
Yeah, well, it is, the VPN is supported by the BGP. Yeah. Jonathan has
no, we don't have the ability to do that right now. There's a proposal on the table that I was working on about doing that, but not implemented right now.
Okay. No time frame. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean,
maybe this is the time to do it. Maybe.
If the Huawei team is working on L3 VPN, how are they expected to do this? Isn't this part of that project?
Well, we have had some initial discussions how to do it. A couple of options. First, I know that we're using Quokka, right? We can extend the Quokka's capability to the VPN route. That's one option. But Huawei has internal routing stack that can be used as well. Those are some example options.
Yeah, so there's a patch for Quokka that's recently been developed that allows Quokka to advertise VPN. But there's no way right now for ONOS to push config or wrap or anything to plugin, if you understand that.
But it can be manually.
Right. You can
manually do it.
Plugin, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, plugin has,
yeah, go ahead.
it has APIs, right? You could just use. Right?
I don't know if it does have APIs that you could use. Maybe. There may be other solutions as well, other BGP routing daemons that have APIs that could be used.
I mean, at the very least, you know, it doesn't really sound to me like a difficult problem, right? I mean, you know, either you're just generating a configuration file or you're calling an API, but either way, it should be easy to do.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. The part that once the let's say your the BGP process learned the prefixes, the VPN v4 routes. Does ONOS currently have like at least good support to send those routes down or convert it to like flow rules?
So ONOS has that for a table, but it doesn't right now support VRS out of the box. You would have to write an application that does that, which is what I assume the L3 VPN application that was proposed by Huawei does, right? I assume that, if not, what is it doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, and so you would have to write that. Yeah, it doesn't move out of the box.
Okay.
Cool. There were a few other agenda items that we were going to try to get through quickly. So
I'm done. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, so much. And regarding the resources, you said maybe when we come up with the actual items, we can.
So if you have technical questions or looking for technical guidance, I would suggest Slack and the mailing list as good places to ask those questions.
Yeah.
If you realize that there's some resources that may be required, then we can have a further follow-up about like a formal project proposal.
But I think what Brian said and what Patrick said about, chances are ON.Lab is busy doing other stuff, but
Hello?
Did you hear me? Were you able to hear me?
You cut out for a little bit.
Oh, it could be the network or Wi-Fi, but I was just saying that I think Brian was being polite that the ON.Lab is mainly working on ONOS core features, and it is has more of a backlog than they can handle. Whereas Huawei already has people working in this area, and you're part of Huawei, so it seems to make sense to look to Huawei for resources for people. And I wouldn't expect anything because lab's already stretched thin working on the core, and this clearly seems to fit into the application side of things.
Understand.
Okay.
That is to get people to write apps for it, right? So this is an app, and so it doesn't seem like it's necessarily a core app for the ONOS distribution.
Cool.
Yes, I agree with you. It's not necessarily a core piece. Whether or not we can make it available, in part of our code base, so that the shim general code base will be part of the ONOS. What's your guys' opinion? Like I mentioned that the shim layer, to build the shim layer, maybe the common code could be made part of the code base. Is that?
Yeah. So the app could either be sort of depending upon its depending on how you want to build it, right?
Right.
It could be included as part of the ONOS main code base.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Or it could be built independently in a separate code base. It's sort of up to you. If you want to have it contributed in the normal code base, it would just need to follow the general best practices that we have for development in the core.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be put in the apps directory.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I would discuss with our team and
Yeah, so again, like a lot of this seems like a pretty high level proposal, right? Before it would be merged in the code, we need to probably get into a more technical discussion, and oftentimes having an application or having some code written can help facilitate that discussion.
Sure. Would a detailed design help?
So a detailed design, or even if you have them code as a draft review.
Sure.
We could sort of discuss the merits of the technical approach, and if it's something that is generally useful, then there's a good chance.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I really like the idea. I was going to say, I really like the idea of having a functional implementation to evaluate. That would sort of make it a lot easier to see how well it works and evaluate the design, and also kind of see if people are using it and if it's an important feature that should be part of the standard ONOS distribution.
Yeah. So I think I'd encourage you to build it, and as you run into some problems along the way, feel free to reach out.
Sure. All right. I want to take a hike.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
So we have a standing agenda item for community shoutouts or acknowledgements. Does anyone have any? No, David's not here to pry, so there's none this week, I guess. The next item I wanted to quickly go through was the plan for 1.7.1. So there's a number of changes that were originally scoped into the Hummingbird release, but they didn't make it through development and/or code review in time to meet the feature or RC deadlines. And so the 4 areas, I guess you'd call them, are one is improvements to the RESTconf client and server. One is the ACTN application. One is DPI stats manager and the adaptive flow manager and flow stat service improvements. So these are still undergoing code review. The plan is over the next couple of weeks to determine where these features stand, and we'll likely have a 1.7.1 release the next 3 weeks. We don't have a date yet on that, but these are the features that we're targeting for that. I guess improvements or features that we're targeting for that release. So, the other thing I wanted to mention was that Hummingbird, we've mentioned on the mailing list a couple of times. You've seen Buck files and Buck talks in the past. Hummingbird's the first release where we've built, packaged, and deployed or published ONOS using Buck. This means that if your stuff is only built using Maven, it wasn't included in the 1.7.1 release or 1.7.0 release, and it likely will not be included in releases going forward. Now there is code that exists outside of the ONOS main repo, and we have to figure out what our release plan is for those artifacts. So if you find that your app samples or Yang tools or other things were not part of the package, that's why. But yeah, I guess the point here is we hope to continue to improve the documentation and stability and complete coverage of things for Buck as the releases go forward. But do keep in mind that Maven, as of Hummingbird, is more or less deprecated for core functionality. It's still a viable mechanism for building your external applications. And you may see that as we have support for things like building the class path or IML files in the future, that the problems may start disappearing. So.
What's left in the core ONOS repo that's not built by Buck? Is there mainly things like the generated file?
Yeah, so one of the main things that is not built using Buck is anything using generated code. So Thrift-generated models, protobufs, and Yang. Ray is currently in the middle of putting together an extension to our plugin that understands models, and you'll be able to plug in a Yang generator, a protobuf generator, a Thrift generator that will, as a pre-compilation step, generate that, and then have the generated models and the artifacts that get built. But for now, that's oh, the other thing that that'll do is it'll generate sources jars for people that want the source files or reference or whatever. But yeah, that's I guess the few remaining things that are in that realm are like being able to bootstrap your IntelliJ or Eclipse project with Buck and being able to generate turn models into Fabric.
Wait, Brian, could you just say what you said a moment ago about bootstrapping your environment? What was that again?
Oh, so Buck has a mechanism to generate the project files for Eclipse or IntelliJ. However, there are some missing directives in our Buck project that prohibit you from doing that. So the way the class paths for the various modules in IntelliJ and Eclipse are built is right now using the POM structure that exists in the code tree. And that's sort of the last thing in the way of removing that. Once we've added the appropriate directives in our Buck files to be able to generate the IMLs and the class path files, then someone will no longer need the POM file to import ONOS into their IDE of choice.
Great.
Into the IDE of choice or into something?
IntelliJ or Eclipse.
IntelliJ or Eclipse are supported supposedly natively by Buck.
Yeah. Do you have another IDE that is Maven-based that you'd like to see support for?
No, it's
No, I mean I use Xcode and Emacs.
So IntelliJ does sort of have so Buck has support for Xcode because they do iOS and macOS projects as well. I don't know what the Java support there is like though.
I mean, all these things that you, like all these Buck components, whatever, what do you call it? Buck modules? Right?
Sorry, what? Sorry?
Like those things that like will generate the IMLs and stuff. No, that's there.
Oh, that's part of Buck.
We just have to do the right thing in our Buck files to make it work.
Yeah. So the support for generating the project files is a upstream core feature. You run Buck project, blah, blah, blah. And the way that we've structured our project right now causes nothing to be generated. So anyway.
Brian, I have a question. So can we set up the specific date for the 1.7.1?
Sure, I don't care. That's fine with me. But if we set up a specific date, Patrick, and we don't get through the code reviews for the features that we've talked about for 1.7.1, then they won't go in.
So where it is the block? So it's in the coders they don't provide the comments and the reply, or is from which side? So we definitely need to solve this, right?
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? One is that for some of these code reviews, there's several thousand lines of code that got dumped in a few weeks after the feature complete deadline. So going through that size of code just takes some time. And so it's both the bandwidth on the code review side, as well as it just takes some time to sort through and get the various things addressed. I mean, in some of these changes, there have been a variety of different issues that have been addressed and are to be addressed. I would say the bigger bottleneck is probably on the code reviewer side, not the coder side. But we, yeah, I guess if there are people that are interested in doing and helping with code review, these would be some of the features that would be higher priority from the 1.7.1 perspective.
Okay, so do you think the coders will provide more information that will help to speed up? Like for the big, large ones, larger code changes, they can provide more information and inline comments or Java doc or something. Do you think that will help?
It may help for certain types of review, but I don't think there's a blanket thing, right? I mean, there's some, well, I guess it's kind of all over the place. Maybe we have to talk on a case-by-case basis. We could go through each of the reviews offline and try to identify if there is some additional information required and make some requests for that.
Okay. I think the ACT, I know some of them is very large now. I can work offline with the teams and give a check first. If more information you need to let me know. We can add more inline comments and Java doc to help the teams to understand the code.
Okay.
Yep.
Patrick, I have a question for you, or I have maybe a comment, which is that if you can have sort of documentation on both the design and user-facing side of stuff, that's something that that's good for making the, well, I don't know, maybe there's documentation for all these things already, that's good, but it's good for making the documentation better, and it might also be helpful for code reviewers. Sure.
I agree with you. So for the APIs, the Java doc, I think the Acaia has the tools so we can generate all those the API explanation Java doc through the tools, right? So for the implementation part, I agree with you. We seems like we don't require each document, each project to provide the design specifications. Yes, I'll try my best and ask the teams to provide more information. Yes.
Okay. I think that's everything we had on the agenda. We have a few minutes if anyone has any other items they wanted to discuss briefly.
The one thing is the module owner. The module owner, basically you can add the YMS guys into the module owner list. That one is voted, right, in the past. So they seems like still waiting for the Thomas give the green lights on that part. Now the YMS has many code in the pipelines waiting for the merge.
Wait, so what was the comment? The comment was there were some people that were approved for module ownership that have not yet.
It's already approved. Just need Thomas added into the module owner list, right? Take a look at the TST voting process.
Okay.
It's already passed.
Okay.
Voting, sorry.
Okay. I see. Okay, that can be done offline.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining the TST. Next week will be one of the 9:30 a.m. meetings. Same day, Wednesday. So thanks for joining, everyone. Bye.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye.
Thanks.